Dr. Thomas and Mr. Faison, are we live so that the public can?
We're live.
We're live, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So it's 5:33. We're gonna call the meeting to order. Dr. Thomas, if you would conduct our roll call for us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Stevens. Mr. Stevens. Miss Davis,
Here.
Dr. Yeager. Dr. Dykeman,
Here. Here.
Mr. Worthy,
Here.
Dr. Gant,
Here.
Dr. Knox,
Here.
Dr. Maddox. Dr. Maddox. And I think I heard Dr. Yeager come in.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. I'm here.
This is Mr. Stevens. I'm here.
Anton is here too.
I hear Mr. Stevens here.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Going to open the floor to amend or adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And that motion is to adopt the agenda, Mr. Davis, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and we had a second. Any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting the agenda as it is before us? Let's see. Dr. Thomas, just for the sake of record, could you do a roll call for us?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yeah.
Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Here.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
Dr. Maddox.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. So our agenda is before us. That moves us to item number 3, which is our 2021 budget discussion. Dr. Thomas and Mr. Briner, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you all. We have our budget meetings in order to allow the public to ask questions regarding the budget. And Mr. Griner has his budget presentation that's been given and has been also available on our YouTube channel. So I will now turn it over to Mr. Griner.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gant. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Lisa, first off, I just wanted to ask, I knew we had given the community the opportunity to email any questions. Did you receive any budget questions?
I did not, but I believe we do have a community member on the Zoom call.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna do a quick overview of the budget. This is the same budget that was presented at the May 21st meeting, which was approved as our tentative budget. Just a quick update. We're still the state legislative body started meeting again yesterday. From what I understand, tomorrow and Thursday are kind of key days for education. Senate Appropriations is going to put forth their new updated budget, so we should know hopefully more in the next couple of days. The original projection was a 14% cut to all departments at the state level. Governor Kemp, a week or so ago, came out and said that he had reduced that number down to 11% as his projected budget cut. So this budget's based on the 14% cut. Before June 25th, which is the final adoption of the budget, we hopefully will know if that 11% is going to hold or if it's going to be a different percentage. So we will see. So there will be some updates that y'all will receive, on the 25th in a slide presentation of any changes that we made to the tentative budget. The biggest changes would relate to the revenue projection and then the CARES Act. I think I mentioned at our last community budget hearings that Department of Education has decided to increase our CARES Act allotment to cover the private school proportionate share that we talked about. They're just basically going to give us that additional allocation, which will offset, that money that will be distributed to the private schools. So that allows us to keep more money at the district level. So we've revised the CARES Act budget, which we will, continue to kind of tweak a little bit, and then on the 25th, we'll show you what that new look on the CARES Act budget. Most of that is just to support school nutrition, and then also to kind of set up a contingency fund for any needs that may arise, that Mr. Fisher may have on the operations side, or that we may have on our student support side, which would be, any nursing, any of those areas, as we continue to find what that new normal is going to look like when we open school back up. So those are, things that will come forth on the 25th, but those are the two major things, will be the revenue projection and then the CARES Act funding. Ms. Palmer, if you could go to the next to the last slide, it's probably the best recap of the FY21 general fund budget. I think it's next to the last slide. I'm trying to. So here's where we have our estimated revenues and expenditures. Beginning fund balance, we're still, 31.5 million. I may revise that number a little bit. I think we're actually going to be a little bit higher than that. We'll have an updated number on the 25th, but our estimated revenues, 159.5 million, estimated expenditures, 164 million, which would leave us with an ending fund balance around 27 million. In this scenario, we're looking at taking about 4.5 million out of fund balance. I hope on the 25th, I'm able to show you something that's going to take about 2.5 million out of fund balance. That 11% versus 14% is about a $2 million, $2 million in additional revenue that we could bring back in that we thought we may lose with the 14% cut. So hopefully that number will be around 2.5 million. Just don't really know until we get a little bit more information. And then that would increase our fund balance percentage over 17%. So we would be much better shape. Again, keep in mind, this budget includes raises for all our custodial staff. It includes getting our pre-K teachers and parapros back up to the teacher salary schedule level. And then I'm trying to think, it also has step increases for all certified and classified employees if they're eligible. So, and it keeps of course, our millage rate, which we'll talk about again at 6, and our public hearing is set at 20 mils. So I think that's kind of a general recap without going through every slide of kind of the key points in there. Again, our tax digest increased a little over 7% for the year, which is really, given the state budget cuts we're looking at, that's kind of our, a huge factor in our discussions, because without that 7% increase, we would definitely be looking at other cuts. So that's definitely helping tremendously with our budget for this year. I knew Lisa said we do have a community member on, so if we have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. Or most of our executive staff is on the call as well.
Hey there, this is Katrina Evans, your lone community member. Can I ask my question now, or?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Evans, that's fine.
Well, thank you, Madam President, Dr. Thomas, and everyone else. So I appreciate everything. I just have a couple questions. And I guess just paying attention from the last 5 years or so, I think in Athens, we have the great fortune of that tax digest that you just mentioned, and the QBE funding has been quote unquote restored. So from 2016 to now, we have around $32 million additional, which is amazing. And so that, I kind of looked at how our student population has grown, and it looks like the student population has decreased by around 100 students. And so my question is, if we have $32 million that's been added to our budget in the last 5 years, where is it going? And I don't have any negative insinuations or anything. I'm assuming there are really good answers. But I'm going to just dovetail that into my next question, which is the CCSD budget is only 13 pages long. So I know you see it all, but Athens, Clarke County, their budget is 386 pages long, and there's 100 million more. But I guess overall, lots of questions, and I'm really hoping for transparency. I don't know who fields those questions.
Dr. Thomas, did you want to, or do you want me?
Right, if you want to go ahead, because I honestly can't speak to a shift in the $32 million. That's a significant amount, and I'm trusting that there is a logical explanation, Ms. Evans, but that was prior to my time. But Mr. Briner, I know you have some of those records, and we've discussed some of this just in shifting of some funding, but if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, and Ms. Evans also, because I've only been with the district 6 months, just comparing this year to last year, and I understand your question. I think it would require some more detailed research. I will say that sometimes, and this is just off the top of my head without looking, sometimes even though your student population decreased, that you may have increases in certain areas of that student population that may be, say, special education piece, and then Ms. Duke might could jump in on this too, but I think on the special education side, you may have increase in those populations or other populations that essentially may require additional cost as well. But I knew that some of that happens. So sometimes the actual increase decrease can be a little misleading without diving into like what parts of the population actually increased, decreased with the school district. I have seen that over my, history of my education finance background. But yeah, without digging in, you're right. We have been fortunate to have a tax digest that's increased. QBE, of course, fully restored a couple of years ago. And I think that, and that's something we can definitely, probably won't be able to dig into all the answers tonight, but that's something we can definitely look into. I don't know if Ms. Duke, I know Ms. Duke has more of a history, so I may let her jump in on this one too. Sorry.
I just know that from listening to Larry over the past several years, and the finance committee probably is more equipped to jump in on this than I am, that I believe the increases on the balance at the end, like coming in better than we budgeted for, was due to tax revenue. And I may be because I'm certainly a little bit out of my lane. I'm just going on memory from what Mr. Hamill presented in previous years.
Lynn, do you think that the number of employees has changed over that 5-year period? Have we added teachers, subtracted teachers? And most of the budget is personnel and instruction, is what I remember from the budget presentation. And so that would be the driver for how we absorb the extra 32 million into the budget. I don't think Katrina's talking about the fund balance. I think she's talking about the fact that we spend $32 million more per year and we don't have more students. So that must be partly personnel.
The numbers are the same. So that was my mistake.
Yeah.
Yes, we have more employees than we have in previous years. We have trended up on the number of staff.
We have more staff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Also,
we're paying the staff more, presumably, also.
Oh, well, sure. It all kind of, you just never know.
And health benefits have increased, I
yeah,
presume?
that's what I wanted.
Health benefits and TRS have rapidly ramped up.
Our responsibility for classified personnel in terms of healthcare and retirement too, I think, Chris, right? Have
Yes,
gone
sir. Yeah.
from a fraction to complete.
Yeah. On the healthcare side, on classified, it used to be fully subsidized by the state when I started doing this 10 years ago. And now it's, we pay $11,340 per year for our classified employees. Now that doesn't, they still pay a premium, but that's on top of the premium they pay. But the state used to fully subsidize that. And that's on the classified side, which certified, we do get some money back through the QBE funding formula, but classified, we get absolutely no money from the state. That's all coming from the local tax digest that's covering that health insurance cost of our classified employees. So I've always called them unfunded mandates, which that's one of them. It's basically the state controls what that number is, and they say we're not giving you funding for it. So you've got to figure out, you got to use your local tax dollars to fund those. So
the other thing I know that has happened sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting.
Thank you. So one thing that has puzzled me in the way budgets are presented to the board is that in my dad's church growing up, the budget was always presented to the congregation with a year before and then the current, the upcoming budget. So you could see year-to-year changes and see percentages and so forth. And I'm not sure that there's anything easily presented, if my memory recollects, with regard to the district budget in that way, because what I think Katrina is asking about is, yes, expenditures have increased 32 million over the last 5 years. So I would really like to see um, data on that. I would like to see which categories of the budget or subcategories of the budget have increased over that time, because I do think that a lot of it will be salaries. For example, one thing we haven't mentioned is when the governor increased faculty salaries by 3,000. We had to do a lot out of our own budget for that because QBE doesn't cover all our faculty by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it would be instructive and would be transparent if we could have something like that where you have the categories of the budget for 5 years ago to now, and just see how much money, and then as a percentage of the 32 million, how much money was in each category or subcategory.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Knox, Lisa, if you could scroll back a little bit, we do it by function now, which is it better to do it by function or object, which what you're talking about is by object, because then you're looking at salaries, you're looking at benefits. I can't remember what slide it is, Lisa, if you get back a few. I think Larry always presented it this way, and that's kind of what I'm used to, where you show like here you have the year-to-year comparison. But you don't, this is at the function level. So how much of instruction is salaries? How much of it is direct operating expenses? So if you can even get down to the granular level of doing it by object, which, that I think that's what you were referring to, where you look at, you actually have a line for salaries, and here's what it was in FY 18, 19, 20, 21. So across the district.
That's what I'd like to see.
Gotcha. Yeah, though we do, this is the way, with the comparison by function. Districts often present by function or by object. I've seen it both ways. I think in the past, Larry always presented it this way, and I've done it that way myself, and I've done it by object sometimes. Okay.
Yeah,
but
Chris.
Yeah.
I want to chime in about what
John
said.
I'm sorry, Mr. Worthy, if you can hold on a minute. I think Dr. Yeager was next, and then Mr.
Well, I had okay, go on.
I was just going to wonder how much, I remember hearing that we have smaller classroom sizes over the last few years, and so more teachers per student according to need. And so I wondered, in terms of answering the question, if that also might account for some of it, not just total salaries, but the number of employees per student has gone up according to the change in the class size. Sorry, Mr. Worthy, go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you. John mentioned earlier about salaries, and definitely that would make a difference in terms of the budget, especially for step raises, because if you have, I don't know, I'm just giving a figure. This is an example, 50, 60, or 100 teachers to retire, and the ones that the new ones that you hire, let's say if they're new teachers, obviously they're going to be on the lower end of the teacher salary schedule. And of course, if you hire, let's say if you hire a 25-year person, 5 of those or 30 of those step raises are going to increase. And over the years, and I think, Chris, you can bear me out on this, over the years, I can recall the amount of money that the school system would put in for teacher retirement was around 13%? Is it 21% now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, next year it's actually 19, but for the current
19.
year,
Okay.
Yeah. So
also, I think I understood Ms. Evans to say, that with the state budget, that some things went away, and I think some people were misled on that. With Governor Deal's last year as governor, if though he did do away with the austerity cuts. But as I have said over and over and over, with the QBE legislation, the FTE counts, school system's supposed to get 60% of the money from the state and 40 from the local tax dollars. It has never been that way. And even this year and last year when Governor Deal, well, whatever year Governor Deal did that, it still was nowhere near 60%. Now, if we didn't have a darn good tax digest in Clarke County, and staying at 20 meals, we would really would be hurting.
So this is Katrina again. I appreciate all of your responses, and I would kind of going back to transparency. I think that, you know, it would be very powerful to see how the class sizes have been reduced. And I also kind of suspect that maybe the Career Academy took a chunk out of that 32 million, since that kind of came online around that time. I don't know, that's a guess. But I guess I would really think it would go a long way to release an expanded budget. I guess I'm seeing you have a millage rate hearing in a minute, and I know the millage rate is already at the top rate. And, you know, I'm happy to contribute our tax money, but other people I don't think are necessarily in the same position. And I think it really builds a solid argument when you can release all the information. The other thing I want to mention that Dr. Knox said about the comparisons, the one kind of tricky thing is that the categories you have up right now, they have been shifted around from 2016 to now. So it's not a linear, you can't track from left to right in a linear fashion, because some of the, it's just been shuffled around. So it's not a pure option to do that. I guess, what is the possibility of releasing a detailed budget?
May I speak, or was it too late? It sounds like that's a good question, but I don't think it's one that we can answer on this call. Is it fair to take that as an action item for our next call, or the next time that we're together, or to post it someplace? Because I think we've had a lot of discussion, but I don't think we've answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Davis, on June 25th, you know, y'all will be voting on the final budget. I mean, between now and then, I mean, worked on a couple different options. Dr. Thomas and I have talked about that. I mean, we can, there is, additional information we can put. It will not be what Athens, Clarke County looks like. My previous experience with school districts is, and I fully believe in transparency, trust me, is that county, city governments always do 300-400 page budget documents. Most school districts do what we're doing, where they present a Google slide presentation, and they may show a budget that shows a little bit more detail, but this is pretty typical around the state, unless you're, say, Gwinnett County or Fulton or DeKalb. I mean, most, from my experience. But again, we could post that between now and then. This is the last actual budget hearing. I mean, on the 25th, the vote will be to adopt the budget. There won't actually be public comment at that meeting. And that date, the main importance of that date is the millage rate has been advertised to be set that night. So
I do have one other question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is the budget that we have a public document? I mean, it's an open records document. If we just scan it, can be made available. The budget, the binders that we got,
public.
It's public. So Katrina, you can come over to my house and look at it.
Yeah, I think historically a binder has been, I think historically, if I'm not mistaken, the binder
Dr. Gant,
or some,
we can't hear you, Dr. Gant.
It has been uploaded for the public to view. I'm just not sure at what point in the okay, Dr. Knox.
I've got three really quick things that apply to this. Looking at the expenditures here by function, one of the things that my dad's church did that CCSD doesn't is to provide percentages. And so it would be, I think, instructive to know if the percentage that went to instruction in FY 2020 is the same or less or more than the percentage that went to that goes to instruction for FY 2021. I just think that's pretty basic. Number two, will the June 25th budget include revised expenses regarding Classic City High School? Because we were told that there would be additional expenses, but I didn't hear that mentioned as part of the revision. And then number 3, since we're at 5:58, is there any way in the future that we could add time to the budget part of this meeting? Because I've always thought it kind of weird that a $160 million budget gets 30 minutes, but the millage rate gets an hour. Thank you.
Yes, and Dr. Knox, to answer your question on Classic City, yes, there, that will be presented on June 25th. We met as a cabinet today, and we're working through those numbers, but we'll have those available June 25th as a revision. Most of the items were already in the budget. There are some increases, and we'll talk through those on June 25th. So, yeah, and so noted for next year, we can definitely make these, an hour long. I think I would, you're looking at how Mr. Hamill did it last year, they were 30 minutes. I think from talking to different staff, in the past, they've been longer some years and shorter some years, but I'm fine with these being an hour. So.
Okay.
And what about percentages?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I can, what I can do, I'm sorry, I lost that question with the other two. For the June 25th meeting, I'll add a column that has the percentages on there on the same presentation.
Good.
So not a problem at all.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? No?
Okay,
There's an echo, Lakeisha.
Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
think the vice president
Aye.
has to carry that. Is
All
she
right,
here?
then we need to go to the other Zoom. Yep. Okay. Thank y'all. Thanks, Ms. Evans.
Thank you all.